What is going on? First thing I'm going to do is apologize for this hair. If anybody knows someone that can come give me a haircut at my home during the lockdown in Chicago, I'll literally pay whatever at this point. I just got to do something about this. So there we go. All right, much better. Anyways, I wanted to take the time to break down some of the most asked questions that I see coming through my Facebook group. So what I'm going to do is actually make a post over here and see what kind of responses I get. So let's switch it over here. We're on the Facebook group. Let me ask. So ask any questions you have below, or I'll just put in the comments. I'll answer them in my next YouTube video. And then I'll find some cool design or something. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes now since I made this post. We've got 3 comments here, all from Jonathan. So shout out to Jonathan for asking questions. Unfortunately, it's kind of my fault for not keeping this group as engaged as I probably should have been. So we'll answer Jonathan's, and then I'm also going to go through some of my more recent YouTube videos and get some questions from there. Question number 1 from Jonathan is, hey man, in your LLC video, you just do business for all stores under one LLC without any DBAs, right? Yes, so I use one LLC that acts as the parent company for all of my e-commerce stores. I find it's easiest for tax purposes. I am considering moving into an S-Corp setup for additional tax benefits this coming year, but that's still to be decided. But one LLC works great. And then for any, let's say, partnerships or joint ventures, those are separate agreements and separate business structures. Comment number 2 from Jonathan. Topic for a video though. I love topic ideas because I start to run out. You know, I have 70 plus free tutorials on this channel, so it's difficult to keep coming up with new concepts. So shout out to Jonathan for a video idea. Let's see what he's got. Should you focus on many different traffic sources to hit 100K per month? Or is Facebook all that you need? I know Facebook is all you need to hit that, but I still think it's a good topic for beginners because of all the distractions like Google ads, YouTube ads, Pinterest ads, TikTok, Snapchat ads, etc. This is a wonderful video idea, and I'm going to touch on it here, but I love the idea a lot, and I will break it out into a separate video. So do you need or should you focus on different traffic sources to hit $100,000 per month in revenue? Well, he answered it himself. So you don't need that to hit $100,000 in revenue, but one reason I would suggest that you do kind of branch out, maybe you do 80% Facebook ads, 10% Google ads, and then the remaining 10% split between, let's say, Pinterest and Snapchat. The reason I suggest that is, let's say you get incorrectly flagged by Facebook. This happens to all of us. Even if you're running completely legitimate ads, it will happen at some point. The great thing about having those other traffic sources is you will still maintain a very decent amount of revenue while your Facebook ad account is down, while you're reworking things. So I think it's just like a stock market, just like any business venture. Diversification is risk adjustment. It's going to lower your risk by diversifying. And it's the same thing when it comes to traffic sources. I'll definitely do a breakdown because currently I am running Facebook ads, Google ads. I'm launching Pinterest ads. I've run Snapchat ads. I don't do TikTok ads. That's something I'm looking into. And also I am running YouTube ads. So I'm hitting all of those except one, and I can definitely break those down into a more specific strategy for you. So Jonathan, once again, great comment. Thank you for that video idea. Jonathan's third question is also ad optimizations, and how often do you touch/make changes to campaigns? This is a great question, and I feel the best way to answer this is by hopping over to one of my real ad accounts actively running, showing you some results, and then talk about the optimizations and changes, the volume of changes I make to those campaigns. Here we are in one of my active ad accounts, and I want to show you the revenue versus the ad spend, and then talk about the optimizations and how often I make changes to campaigns. So first, I'm going to load the revenue in real time here. So since launching, like back in March, about $147,000 in revenue. You can see right where we ran out of inventory, and now we got our inventory back up. So we just launched the ads again about yesterday. But what was nice is it did stay organic, generating over $1,000 in sales with no advertising, which was a pretty cool thing to see. Anyways, let's talk about the ad account. So $147,000 in sales, and $20,000 spent on Facebook ads. And I'll refresh this here so you see these numbers are legitimate. 20,000 spent. Facebook only tracked about 116, but as you saw, revenue was 147. So the ROAS is about a 7 to an 8 return on my ad spend. When it comes to changes and optimization and worrying about learning phases, in my opinion, it's completely exaggerated. And this is something that we actually talked about on the full-time ecom coaching call on this past Tuesday. Some members and I were in there and we were discussing this topic. And what I want, there's a few things I want you to understand about these results right here. Number one, I use this creative test campaign to identify high-performing creatives, and I just drop them in. Once I drop them into my existing campaigns, I don't do any special like entrance system or anything dramatic. I just literally take the creative, duplicate the original one in a campaign, and then launch it. Nothing special. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, that's going to reset the learning phase. You are technically in the learning phase until you hit 50 plus conversion events per ad set per week. The average order value of this account's like $166. So hitting 50 purchases per week per ad set that's a lot. So technically every ad set that I have in this account is flagged as learning limited. And you can see it doesn't have a big dramatic effect. So that's the first thing to take away. Don't overthink it. If you need to make changes, if you only have one creative in an ad set and you want to drop in a second, do it. But first, just verify it with some simple low budget creative testing to verify it's going to perform well, then just drop it in. Don't overthink the volume of changes. When it comes to actually scaling and descaling, I use automations. I do 30% scales, 30% descales. I find that remains consistent. It doesn't affect the learning phase too much. So don't overthink it. It's way too overhyped in my opinion. So it looks like we just got one more question coming into the group. And by the way, you can join this group. I'll link it down in the description. It's my Facebook advertising and Shopify Facebook group where I think we've got about 800 members now, 900 members. And we just, post questions in here. I answer it as much as I have free time. So Carlos asks, a question regarding the dynamic creative. I go for several creatives. After 72 hours, do I have to see the best ad combination and then upload it separately in another campaign? Or do I always leave the dynamic creative active with all variations running? This is a great question. This is something that I actually just talked with the students in full-time ecom in our Tuesday coaching call and kind of broke down my process. Also, if you want to get an idea of more about dynamic creatives, I have a full video on it. It's called 3 Days to Profitable Facebook Ads. One of my more recent videos where I talk about my dynamic creative launch strategy. When it comes to dynamic creative, first of all, Carlos says he uses several creatives in it. Several is pretty arbitrary. I would assume though he means probably, let's say 4 to 5 different assets. That's a lot. And when it comes to dynamic creative, you really have to limit your variability. What I mean by that is if you're going to be testing and using different video assets in the dynamic creative, use maybe 2 to 3 different video assets and then keep everything as similar as possible. Keep everything else static. Because let's say you have 4 different video creatives, 4 different button options, 4 different headlines, 4 different copy variations. You're going to have over, let's say, 100 different creative variations. And unless you're spending $1,000 a day to test all of that, it's not going to be able to accurately gauge results. So for a 72-hour run at lower budgets, reasonable budgets, limit it to maybe max 3 video creatives or image creatives, and then maybe 1 to 2 headlines, and then test and then run it at that level. So after 72 hours, do you have to see the best ad combination and upload it separately? So what Carlos is asking here is once he's let that run for 72 hours, should he break it down by the dynamic creative assets and then upload it to a separate static creative, or just let it keep running? What you can do, and what I personally do, is a mixture of both. Within that dynamic creative, you can just remove the ones that are underperforming and let that run. I like to do that when it comes to retargeting, because when it comes to retargeting, Facebook can really identify what's going to work well. So I'm more flexible with the dynamic creative aspect of it. But if I'm about to launch a big, fresh campaign with the result of the dynamic creative, I like to break it out into a static creative. The reason being is you're going to build the engagement up on it. It's going to become a not only a high performing creative, but it's going to become a data source, a very powerful data source, because you can use that static creative to then build your 95% custom audiences, 75% custom audiences, and the lookalikes surrounding it. So to sum it up, I do a mixture of both. It really comes down to what's working. You could always test both. And obviously, as you know, I preach test everything. And that's really the way that I personally go about it. Okay, here I am on my Facebook comments. So I'm going to go through, find 2 to 3 questions and get those answered here in the video for you. So let's go take a look through here. Shout out Nadia Ali. Go follow her on Instagram if you want to see some amazing ocean life photography, videography. She's an incredible scuba diver and amazing work. So go shout out Nadia. She likes the info, so gotta give that one a heart. Let's find a question here. Going for the first question. Morgan Archer asks, do you do this for each of your ad sets so you can see which creative works best for the specific demographic/interest target? Also, does this method find creatives that is only optimized for Facebook feed, or can the creative be applied to ad sets that are running automatic placements? And this was actually asked on a dynamic creative. So dynamic creative seems to be a huge question point, and there's a lot of confusion. So definitely a great question from Morgan. I'm going to answer that here for you right now. For each of my ad sets, do I do this so I can see what works best with demographic/interest targeting? I don't do this for every ad set. I like to use the best ad set that I have at the time. So if I have a specific interest that is my best performer at that time, I will use that to then test my dynamic creative. Morgan then asks, does this method find creative that is only optimized for the Facebook feed or automatic placements? I personally run all of my tests with Facebook feed only with mobile, and I need to put context, all of my dynamic creative tests when I'm just launching something. So that's how I usually launch it, and that'll give me more of, it once again limits my variability. But the brand that I just showed you in this video, the ad account, with that, I'll just launch it with automatic placements, and Facebook knows at that point, it has a lot of data, it knows where to put it and how to build those combinations for different placements. So it really comes down to answer your question, what phase you are in the advertising life cycle. If you're just getting started, I would recommend Facebook feed only to limit the variability. If you're further along, go ahead and try automatic placements and see how it performs. All right, let's go find another question here. Let's see. Shout out to everyone giving great feedback on the videos here. Quick comment on something I just saw. So Wilford the Fourth says, it seems like Dsers has Oberlo beat. Can anyone give me any reason to pick Oberlo over Dsers? No, personally I can't. It's actually funny. Oberlo's is sliding into my emails, offering to pay me for sponsored posts, and I won't do it. So I think that's proof right there that I don't personally recommend Oberlo. And the reason being is, let's say a year and a half ago, I experienced some issues with them, just a really pain in the butt. And that was before that, I had this community and I was slightly known in the e-commerce space. I essentially was in the spot that the majority of you guys are right now, where you don't have a ton of influence over these larger companies, and trying to work with them and solve an issue was horrible. And then I actually found out about Dsers, tried it out. I reached out to Dsers with some questions, super responsive. They've been great to work with. And that's why, I've never received any sort of money from either of these companies. Oberlo is trying to get an offer in right now, and I'm not going to work with them because I try to keep it as transparent as possible, and Dsers is the way to go. So let's keep moving on here. I'm going to do one more question. Let's just go. Keep scrolling, and then... All right, so my main camera just died. Apologies for the drop in quality. Had to switch to my other one. But we have our next comment here from Andre Rossetti. Andre asks, first it says great content. Thank you, Andre. I do appreciate that. Question though, what do you prefer, niche or general store? I've personally never run a general store. I mean, I did back in 2017. I tried to launch one with no success. Same with 2016, no success with it. I personally, all my brands are niche focused. I like to start out with 1 to 2 main products and branch off once I find success with those. The reason being is when you have an initial product that is working, customers love it, and you have a lot of data, it's very easy to utilize that data to launch into new product SKUs. And by SKUs, I just mean additional products within that same product line. So that's personally what I do. My business partner and I just placed a very large inventory order to expand what was essentially a one product store to a niche store with multiple products now. So I like to start small and branch out instead of just trying to throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. I put my 100% of my time and effort on one thing to start. First off, I want to thank you for watching essentially the entirety of this video. If you haven't yet, please hit that like button. It really helps out my channel. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe before heading out to stay up to date with videos just like this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave any more questions that you have in the comments. I will get to them and get you answers as soon as possible. Talk soon.